Vanderbilt is out for revenge, and they will achieve it.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Again, thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And this episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail. And when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is the only beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move or be moved. Now, today's episode is going to be very, very interesting because this game is one that I think Clark Lee had circled on the calendar. And so this became a very action-packed week, very action-packed episode, and a lot to unpack here. And so it's going to be exciting. We're going to obviously make our prediction. I'm going to give you my week 4 SEC picks. And then, the keys to the game, the keys to victory. I said Vanderbilt was going to achieve revenge. I'm going to tell you how and what they need to do. But first, the impact of this game, I think need to talk about the revenge factor a little deeper because it is probably the most important factor. And there's a lot of advantages to that as far as motivation goes, but there's a lot of pitfalls with that as well. So I want to kind of discern a lot of that stuff, and I want to kind of make sure we kind of know the difference. So again, last year, the revenge factor is a real thing. Because, you could look at it like, oh, it's just Georgia State. It was a fluke slip up. It was back and forth. They just kind of stayed in it, and Vanderbilt just kind of let them win. That was not the case. The case was this. For a 36-32 victory, that might as well have been a 36-0 victory. I mean, I think Georgia State, see, I can't even get the name right. Georgia State led pretty much the entire game. I think Vanderbilt was in close striking distance a few times. They took the lead late and thought they were going to get out of there. That team thought they were going to get out of there with unscathed with a victory, and that certainly wasn't the case. And Georgia State punished them for their lack of focus to detail, for their lack of competitiveness, for their just brain fog. They were overconfident. They walked in there and thought the Vanderbilt logo will win us this game. Vanderbilt is not that type of program yet. Vanderbilt is not a roll out the logo and win. They're not Alabama. They're not Georgia. They're not Ohio State. They're not Texas. They're not one of those schools that you see the logo and immediately, it's a loss, right? Vanderbilt has to be, in order to be a good program, in order to build the way they are, they've done this to this point, but they have to continue to do it. And this is a requirement, I think, for Vanderbilt is they have to outplay you with the details. They have to out-scheme you. They have to gain and take advantage of the little and few advantages they may have over a team. They have to exploit those and really be focused enough to take care of business. And if they don't, teams like Georgia State, Utah State next week, that's not an easy game because Bronco Mendenhall is a great coach, and that team will be well prepared. I don't know how much talent they have, but they will be well prepared. So that's it. That's another game where you're looking forward to Bama, and that could be a true trap. Which I don't know kind of where we stand in that whole deal, but the impact of this game is this. Okay, you lost last year, so the expectation is you get revenge, and you get revenge in a big way because the line is 26.5, unless it's moved. I haven't checked to see if it's moved, but I'm assuming if it's going to move, it's going to move up. All right, it's 26.5. That's the line. So you're expected to cover that at the bare minimum. You're expected to cover that. You're expected to get starters you're expected to get starters out by the start of the third quarter. That's another expectation. And this Georgia State team has not produced. They haven't been strong as a team unit. They have a lot of great pieces. They just hadn't figured out a way to put the puzzle together just yet. They haven't found a way to execute as a singular unit on offense and defense and special teams. So this game could get away from them in that regard. So the impact of this game is you win this game like you're supposed to, you build your depth, you get some confidence heading into next week and the week after and down the stretch, and you get some guys some quality playing time, you get some more reps executing, you get I think the biggest thing you can gain from this is being able to compete at your best when your best is not necessarily required. It will always be required. But like really if you think about it, like the trap portion of these type of games, you know, the pitfalls, the mentality that you can slip into is this game's easy. You can coast a little bit. Like, I don't need to be 100% my best. I can take chances. We can kind of just roll through this because we're looking ahead to Bama, right? And usually against with this talent discrepancy, usually that doesn't matter. Usually you come out sloppy and you end up winning away and you end up covering like a lot of teams do. But oftentimes it looks kind of shaky. And last year's game, it was more than shaky. You lost. So Vanderbilt is not a team that's ready to be able to have that type of mentality. And I guarantee you Clark Lee, I guarantee you Diego Pavia, Eli Stowers, and anybody else on that roster that was here last year that was down in Atlanta that played is probably telling the team, like, there's not a whole lot Clark Lee has to say. I think everything he's saying is because he wants to say it and he feels like he needs to say it. But I think the message was well received last year. I haven't seen any sort of fall off since then. Against Charleston Southern was a game they could have very easily came out flat in. They didn't. They came out sharp. They lost focus a little bit in the middle, but the game was well in hand. So they were in danger of anything. And so you got to take that same mentality. And that's kind of what you're looking at. So if you can come out of this game with that, if you can come out of this game with Blaise Berlowitz getting some heavy snaps and maybe even getting Drew Dickey in as your third stringer for a few snaps, like I think you could walk away and say offensively that was successful. That was a successful venture. Defensively, you get your twos and threes in to play significant minutes in the second half. I think if you can get to that point where they can feel like they're in a real game and they feel like they're in some real dire situations, like, hey, it's 38-0. Hey, twos, don't give up any points. Minimize yards, get off the field. You force them to execute, and you hold them to the same standard as if the game was 0-0 and they were the starters, right? So it's good to be able to have situations like that. And this game definitely presents itself as one of those games, or as possibly one of those games. So the impact of actually succeeding at that will also let the world know that, hey, Vanderbilt is for real. They can handle the ebbs and flows of the schedule. Like, it's not South Carolina at Williams-Brice at night. It's not that atmosphere. Like, it's not that type of competition. They can, this team needs to be able to show that they can handle the drop in talent level of their opponent and be able to, I say drop because they got some dudes. If you listen to yesterday's episode with David Schultz, we talk about some personnel that Georgia State has that could present some problems, like Ted Hurst is probably the main one on their offense. So just, again, this game will prove a lot of things. This game will prove that, hey, revenge factor is real, and we'll see that. But more importantly, for the future of this schedule, it'll prove that they're mature enough to really be able to focus when it's not necessarily necessary to focus or to be on your peak condition, right? Because this game, like I said, the ingredients are there, the conditions are right for this to be that type of game where you kind of just struggle your way through it because you're not really focused. I don't think that's the problem this week, but that's something that could happen. And that's something that they should watch out for. And that's something they should avoid. And given the fact that Georgia State beat them, they can't avoid that. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I think that's where the impact of this game lies. But how does Vanderbilt avoid that? How do they make this a game to where your starters are out by the start of the third quarter? How is it another empty the bench game? We're going to talk about that next. Hey, but first, man, I told you guys this was happening. This episode is brought to you by Mazda, moving the game forward. For those who believe it, not just playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, they keep moving games forward. So this week's moment that moved the game forward is the Zaylen Wood interception, because coming into that series, South Carolina was starting to gather some momentum. They had ripped the ball down the field the previous series, got a massive touchdown. I mean, an easy touchdown. They were looking to do the same after they had just made Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt's offense go 3 and out. They moved the ball down the field, and all of a sudden, Zaylen Wood drops back into coverage. Lenore Sellers does not see him, throws him a strike. We intercept it, and the rest is history, because protection starts breaking down. Lenore Sellers obviously goes down, and then Vanderbilt ends up winning the game 31-7. And I've heard, on a side note, that Lenore Sellers is going to play, so that's good that he's not too badly hurt. But that interception was a thing that I think flipped momentum, what seems to be permanently in Vanderbilt's favor. So that is something that, even if whatever the case may be, that moved things forward. So when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move or be moved. All righty. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen. If you need a second listen, Locked On SEC with Chris Gordy is the place to go. Or check out any of the shows in the family of SEC shows in the Locked On Network. We're all good. Everything is a great show. Everybody does a great show in this league. I couldn't be happier to be affiliated with the Locked On SEC channels. So there's a lot of great content out there if you want to check it out. But Chris Gordy and Locked On SEC is kind of the catch-all there. So talking about this game, the revenge factor is it's like I said, it's a real thing. And when you look at how things are constructed, when you look at how these games come together, or like when you look at the anatomy of the defeat from last year, like there's a lot of factors that came into play that Vanderbilt needs to avoid coming into this game, right? So here's some of the keys that I think need to happen for Vanderbilt to avoid all of that, which I think this week of practice seems to be really good. The spirit seems to be really good. I think everybody's feeling good about being ranked. And I think people know what's at stake here, because it's not a fluke that we're sitting in this position. Number 20, ready to take on the world. There's no fluke there. This is not they got lucky and eked out a win against South Carolina. No, they dominated. They didn't get lucky at Virginia Tech. Now, Virginia Tech has proven that they are bad. But Vanderbilt did what good teams should do against bad teams. They squashed them. They buried them. They struggled a little bit in the first half, but they ended up burying Virginia Tech, which in most years, Virginia Tech would have buried Vanderbilt. So there's that. Now, in this game, keys to success versus Georgia State. Offense. Dominate the line of scrimmage right out of the gate. Don't give them any chance to gain confidence. I think last year, you just couldn't get movement. You just couldn't quite find run lanes. You couldn't quite find much on the offensive side of the ball, much space, much time, much whatever. It's because they came out lackadaisical. Georgia State did some things. They played harder up front last year, and you just couldn't get anything going. They gained confidence, and then they started just playing better. And then they became the better team that last year. That the offense really had no chance. They couldn't get anything going. They had I think they had a turnover. There was some lackadaisical moments. They were dropping passes. They were jumping off sides, stupid shoot yourself in the foot type penalties. All of that was happening last year in Atlanta. So for the offense, dominate right out of the gate. You did it against Charleston Southern. You did it against South Carolina. It took you a minute. You kind of were moving the ball against Virginia Tech. You had some great play calls. You had some great play designs. You had some good movement with against Virginia Tech. You just a couple turnovers, shoot yourself in the foot with a couple of big penalties, and you had a kind of a not a great half of football in Virginia Tech, but you figured it out after halftime, and you haven't looked backwards since. So come out with that same focus, come out with that same energy, come out with that same dominant mindset, and I think it'll squash them. I think it will overwhelm them. I think they will just their will be broken. So that's what you have to do. You have to dominate up front, gash them on some big runs, hit some big pass plays, do what you got to do, and keep everybody healthy. All right. Offensively, that's the biggest key to me because, again, nothing builds confidence more than taking an elite offense, which Vanderbilt is. Diego Pavia's an elite quarterback. We know that. We know he's performed to that capability. Nothing can change the course of a game than having a defense go out and dominate, especially with an underdog. Because if you can squash what they're doing, it takes the confidence in the air right out of the stadium. It takes the confidence in the air right out of the sideline. And it's a really, really bad thing. It's a really ugly thing that can snowball. And that's the worst part about it is, okay, first drive, you come out sloppy, 3 and out. Okay, that's one thing. And then you start to kind of slowly build and you're getting a little bit sharper each drive. Like maybe you just have trouble waking up throughout the course of the game. Whatever the case may be, that's not often too detrimental, but it's when you start adding in, okay, you go 3 and out on the first drive. Then you get a first down, but then you go straight backwards on the second set of downs, and then you end up having to punt. Or you have a great drive going and you fumble. Or you have a great drive going, they make Diego scramble, and he throws an ill-advised interception. That's possible. He did it at South Carolina. It's those things that can really, really have a chance to derail what you're doing. If you stack a bunch of that stuff together, it can be really, really detrimental. Now, when Diego threw his pick last week against South Carolina, it wasn't a detrimental situation because, they bounced back really well, but they already had the confidence going of, that first drive against South Carolina set the tone. So any mistakes after that, the confidence was still there, and the confidence was still there to be able to fix that. So they need to come out with that same intensity, drive it down the first drive, punch it across the goal line, and set the tone for what's about to happen that night. All right. So that's, that's kind of where I'm at there offensively. It's a pretty simple game plan. It's probably what you should do every single game, but there's different nuances to that. And for this one, it's the whole confidence angle. You just can't give a team like Georgia State, who has talent, they hadn't put it all together yet, but you can't give them any reason to feel like they can and to feel like they can play with you. Because if they feel like that, which they did last year, they will not only take the lead, but they'll cram the ball down your throat, which they did last year. They'll be able to score over the top like they did last year, and they will be able to prevent you from doing anything that you want to do, and they will frustrate everything that you do. So that's something that you need to watch out for. That's a big, big key. Now, defense. Ooh, wrong graphic. All right. Defense, you got to have an answer for Ted Hurst. That's the guy that can hurt you the best or the most, right? You have to have an answer. He's, David Schultz described him as electric and highly intelligent. That, if I simplified his explanation of Ted Hurst, that's it. He's electric. He makes things happen. He can get over the top. He's fast. He can run. He can make those big plays when they need him the most. And he's highly intelligent, so he knows he's got a great awareness, which, thanks to David Schultz, that guy's amazing, by the way. If you need another listen outside of the family of SEC shows, Locked On Sunbelt may be the place to go. He's very, very good at what he does, and I enjoyed having him, and I hope to have him back at some point. I don't know when or how or what, but I would like to have another crossover with him. So. You just got to have those answers. So I think the thing that got you last year is not communicating, not being able to, on the back end, like, okay, do I have safety help? Or they're going to have to design coverages to be able to account for Ted Hurst, because really and truly, he's kind of the only one. He's kind of really the only guy that can really hurt you. They don't have a ton of other weapons that you would like shaking your boots about, like that you would be really fearful about. So that's something that, needs to happen. You shut him down. Be physical with him at the line of scrimmage. Jostle him. Make him make the catch of the day every catch. If he's gonna get yards on you, make him earn those yards, make him earn those catches. All right. It's just like the overall defensive philosophy of making the team drive the field. Because the more plays you get, the more impatient offensive coordinators get. I know, because I was one. So it's that kind of concept, right? If you make him earn every catch, you're going to get a few that get dropped. You're going to get a few that maybe he runs the wrong route. Maybe he messes up the timing because he's getting jammed and the quarterback gets sacked. These quarterbacks they have running ability, but they don't run. They don't really want to run. So if you can hold up their best target, maybe you leave yourself a chance for some big plays along the defensive front. So, and then of course, obviously, dominate the line of scrimmage. Like that's something that you're going to probably think about and say, well, no kidding. Yeah, dominate the line of scrimmage. What are you tell me next, right? What are you going to tell me next? The team that scores the most points wins. Like, I know it seems that obvious, but again, not to overthink the room. That's just something that psychologically, if you're dominating the line of scrimmage, their offensive coordinator, that play sheet gets real blank. Like, there is nothing that stands out. All that stuff runs together. And I've had that feeling as an offensive coordinator where you're just getting your butt kicked up front and you can't do anything. I've had that feeling of holding that play sheet when I do look at it and looking down and go, nope. Can't do that. That sucked the last time. Okay, maybe. And then make the play call, right? Like that's a bad feeling for an offensive coordinator to have. And if you dominate the line of scrimmage, you can get him in that feeling. Like Mike Shula felt that way last week. Because Vanderbilt dominated the line of scrimmage. When I say they did simple better, that's what I'm talking about. So doing simple better is winning at the line of scrimmage, blocking and tackling. That's the simple things. You dominate those simple things, the score usually takes care of itself, because now your playmakers get involved on either side, right? You have other things at play when you can control the line of scrimmage. So that's an obvious one. Offensively, dominate the line of scrimmage. You can do whatever you want, and you could probably name the score. Defensively, you dominate the line of scrimmage. They may not cross the 50, but they've got Rashad Amos and Branson Robinson as their top two running backs. Like, Branson Robinson is a unit who was cut out of granite. I think he was a Dell McGee recruit at Georgia, and he transferred down to play for Coach McGee. So that's going to be tough. So dominate the line of scrimmage. Make sure you do the simple things better. Throw, catch, execute, stay clean on penalties, all that good stuff, right? Do simple better. So if I had to summarize everything, it would just be do simple better, right? And then don't get wrapped up. This is the biggest one, and this is why I think the game is important. That's why I think this game has a big impact, because I think there's some emotional stuff that can happen. I think there's some things that this could be like one of those emotional, challenging games. You're building your EQ in that regard, like Kurt Page says, and he focuses on. I think he's doing I think he did his dissertation on EQ. So that's something that I think is going to come into play here. So don't get wrapped up in the emotions of, quote, revenge. Handle the business and execute, right? So just go out there and do your job. Clark Lee has been preaching all season, all off season, we're going to focus on ourselves. He's been preaching that. And in order to execute that, you've got to go out and just worry about what you're doing, execute the plan, and let's freaking ride. Handle business, treat them, obviously be excited, but treat them like they're another opponent. So we're going to take a quick break. We're probably going to go overtime, but we're going to make some picks. We're going to do that next. However, DoorDash, man, I love DoorDash, and it's again, it's almost the weekend, and it's time to look back down and crown this week's MVP on who delivered. Powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. So for Vanderbilt, I think Zaylen Wood and Miles Capers delivered in a huge way. Now, Zaylen Wood, I think, snatched momentum for Vanderbilt and snatched it for good with his first quarter interception of Lenore Sellers. I think that set up a lot of things there, and of course, Miles Capers had a really good game in his homecoming. He had a strip sack of Doty, Luke Doty, and that was something that he did, and that was great. And when the pressure was on, Zaylen Wood and Miles Capers came through. No hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, this performance was not a fluke. So Zaylen Wood is on a streak. Miles Capers is on a streak. And just like those two that I mentioned and them delivering for Vanderbilt, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo periods good through 11/18. All right. Hydration is key, man. And if you stay on top of it, things just work better. Energy, mood, focus, your skin, all of that. But getting fluids every day isn't always easy. That's why I've been using and loving DripDrop. DripDrop is a doctor-developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration. It uses perfect balance of sodium, electrolytes, and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading sports drinks. So what flavor do I like? That's the question that everyone asks. Hey, you get this variety pack. What is your favorite flavor? They have a general citrus flavor it's kind of along the lemon lime flavor family, and I really like that. That's a game changer for me. I tried a lot of electrolyte powders. Nothing tastes as good or works as fast as DripDrop. Believe me, I've tried a lot of them, and this one's the best. I keep a few in my backpack, a few in my desk. I just kind of want to make sure that wherever I go, I have one, and I have my water bottle with me, obviously. And it's great, man. It's been my go-to, especially during these long summer days, or even like we're in mid-September now, like these extended summer days. Like I just know when it's extremely hot, I can just pop a DripDrop, pour it into my shaker, and get some nice hydration going. So right now, DripDrop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to dripdrop.com and use promo code LockedOnCollege. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LockedOnCollege for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits you hard. All right, we are wrapping up. We got a very short way to go here, Locked On Vandy. Thanks for making us your first listen. Make sure you follow on social media, all social media platforms at Locked On Vandy. We're going to go into overtime. So I got a few picks. We're not going to go far into overtime, but I got a few picks that I want to get to you, so you can play on FanDuel this weekend and try out my picks. Hopefully they make you money. And I also, of course, want to pick the Vanderbilt game. Vanderbilt is 26.5 point favorites. I think the over-under is 48.5, if I remember correctly. And I'm taking Vanderbilt to cover the 26.5. I think the revenge factor is real. Last year, you heard and read reports, and his weekly press conference, he was just not thrilled about the preparation. I think he feels a lot differently right now. It just feels like this team is just locked in, laser focused, and ready to just beat the crap out of whoever's in front of them. That doesn't change. And the fact that they lost this team last year only fuels that fire. So I'm taking Vanderbilt to cover the 26.5. And I think it's going to be a 41-7 type game. And then we're going to roll right into Utah State, and we're going to get ready to make a run this season. So that's my game pick for this one. Now I have some additional picks that I want to get out there. Here's the list of them. I'll talk about them very briefly because I know we're over our 30-minute mark, but Oklahoma -6.5 against Auburn. I really like the way this defense is playing. I think they're playing on all cylinders. This is going to be a heck of a quarterback battle, but I think Jackson Arnold is still too one-dimensional to beat Oklahoma. And John Mateer is on another level. I said that when I talked about John Mateer as being a possible Vanderbilt target when it was unclear if Diego Pavia was going to be granted his extra year of eligibility. Now, when obviously that fell by the wayside when Pavia was able to return, but like that was somebody I would want Vanderbilt to have gone highly after if there was a need there. But John Mateer is proving everything I thought about him correctly, and I think he proves that again on this stage at home against Auburn. So give me the Sooners -6.5. Miami is taking on the Gators, and the Gators are just reeling, man. Like 5 turnovers last week. You get beat up front on the line of scrimmage against South Florida. Like things are just going from bad to worse for Billy Napier's crew. And Miami's playing really, really well right now. And not that I'm super high on Miami, because I just don't really know a ton about Miami. I just know they're playing really well. I know Carson Beck is having a good season. Their defense is getting after it. But I think this is going to be kind of more geared towards what Florida is not doing and what Florida is not able to do. And that's why I think Miami -9.5 is a good pick. And I'm going to roll with it. And of course, Missouri -11.5 at South Carolina. Right now, I like that pick. I could make an audible in the live bet depending on if Lenore Sellers plays or not. But something about Missouri this year, like the whole not being ranked thing, I think really put a spur in their saddle, and they're upset about it, and they're doing something about it. They're proving to the world. They're basically giving the world a, hey, we're like, you forgot about us. We won 10 games the last 2 seasons. Like, wasn't a fluke. And I just think you have the king of troll. I guess Lane's the king of troll, but like he's up there in the pantheon of trolls. And then you have the coach with the thinnest skin, which I like Shane Beamer, but he has extremely thin skin. It's just a lot bothers him, and I think the team ebbs and flows emotionally because of Shane Beamer and who he is and what his temperament is. So I think in this environment, it's going to be tough for them to win. And I think Missouri covers the spread. I think they win by 2 touchdowns. And so that's going to be something that we point out as saying, okay, well, did Vanderbilt break South Carolina? And if Lenore Sellers doesn't play, then that line probably will shoot up. So if you can get it at -11.5, you should do that. If Lenore Sellers plays, that line might drop, and you can get it at a better rate. But nonetheless, as it stands right now, I would take it at -11.5. If it drops, I would definitely take Missouri still. If it goes up, I think I might think about South Carolina because I don't know that Missouri could cover a spread much more than 2 touchdowns. So those are my picks. I'm going to flash them up one more time. Oklahoma -6.5, Miami -9.5, Missouri -11.5. Hop on FanDuel and play those if you like. I'm going to. I'll let you know how I do. And then hopefully we come away winners in those picks. So hope you like the show. Like, subscribe, all of that stuff. Thank you for joining me. Locked On College Football Kickoff, or Amazon College Football Kickoff, which partners with Locked On, is a really phenomenal show. They do a great job. Drake Toll, Jesse Holly, and Coach Gary Patterson. Check that out, and you won't regret it. And you won't regret liking and subscribing this show. Let's get me up to 1,000. But until next time, if hopefully you enjoy the game, I will be there. So if you see me, wave, be like, hey, I love the show or whatever. I'll see you there. Anchor down. Peace.